They do.
Oh, we're starting. So I'm trying to get a feel for like who's on here and where you're at in your career. And because of the subject that West asked me to talk about, kind of keeping the flow going in my first year in business, as far as, right, Wes?
Correct. Talking about your pipeline. First off,
Yeah,
Gail,
your
just
pipeline, and right, exactly.
down as far
So
as
anyway, so that's kind of what I'm addressing. So my assumption is that some of you are either newer or maybe in
I'm
first or
pretty
second
new.
year. I
My
don't
name's
know how you guys' market is there, but our market is down a lot in the last year. 33% in one of our main counties. We kind of service quite a few different counties, but our two main counties are down about 33% and 31% in closed transactions for this year. So probably like a lot of markets, you know, we're kind of having to go back to some real basics, because I think we got spoiled the last few years where, you know, a lot of times a business just kind of dropped into our lap. So I kind of look at, well, first off, I'm going to talk about mindset a little bit, because I was not I'm older, in case you guys didn't figure out. Anyway, so, you know, the younger kids, they're really a lot better than us, I think, anyway, the younger generations, as far as mindset and having a very strong belief in mindset. And prior to coming into this business, to be honest, I didn't really believe in that crap. You know, I just thought, hey, you know, you make your own way or whatever, but I didn't really have the true impact about how your mindset can affect your business. So I think that that's the first big kind of aha that I got when I first started in this business, is that the way I look at it and the way I approach it is totally 100% based on my mindset and the production that I'm going to get out of it based on where my head's at. So I just decided when I started this business that I was going to make it, I was going to be successful, and I was going to basically do everything it takes to get what I wanted to accomplish. So just having that mindset, I think, to start with, and trust me, there was days that I was like, I don't want to do this crap anymore. In fact, I remember in December, I started officially in August. And I remember a conversation with my husband in December that I said, you know what? I don't think I'm going to do this anymore. This is like way too much work. But I just decided, I had decided when I started that I was going to give it a year and 2 years at the most. And I was going to give it my all. And if I couldn't make it work then I would just go retire again. So I look at pipeline kind of as, Wes is going to laugh at this, because we have a group that I kind of started at a place called POP. And it stands for Place Old People. And you can't be in it unless you're like 55 or older. And we've had a few people try to sneak in, but I'm like, I need to see your ID. But I also have POP kind of in my head for another reason. And it stands for, in my head, it stands for Pipeline, Opportunities, and Pendings. Probably since I started, I took my mind and my concentration off of close. Like, I need to close 2 this month. You know, if I want to do 24 this year, I need to close 2 this month. If I want to do 60 this year, I need to close 5 this month, and moved it over to pendings. And the reason I did that was partly mindset, but because I knew that if I could keep my pipeline full with pendings, that the closings were going to happen. And I also knew that sometimes things shift, as you all know. Like, if you think you're going to get 2 that month, one of them always seems to flow into the next month or whatever. So for example, if I decided that I needed to do 24, I knew that I need to have 2 to 3 pendings every month. Like, that's going to be my minimum. If I want to keep on track to close 24 in the year, I need 2 to 3 pendings every single month. So I back that in then to my pipeline. and opportunities. And the reason I bring up opportunities that become so key in the equation is because when you're first starting, you don't have quite as many opportunities. You kind of got to go make your own. So when you're first starting, you have to be a hunter, not a gatherer. And I think this market right now makes us all be more hunters than gatherers. So if you're looking at opportunities and you're just starting out and you're thinking, okay, where can I get immediate business? What I focused on, and this was just me, you might have other things that you're focusing on, but I focused on areas of opportunity that I thought could give me the quickest amount of business. Open houses, FSBOs, canceled and expireds. Those were kind of the three areas that when I first started out, I put a ton of concentration into, because I knew that most people that are going to open houses are going to open houses because they're kind of thinking about buying a house. Now, not always, but you know, the chances of you finding immediate business at an open house is pretty high. Okay. Versus being on the call and making 150 mojo dials. I'm going to circle back to that though. Canceled and expireds. Hey, those people wanted to sell at one point. So I did a ton of canceled and expired calls when I first started. And the first year in my business, I actually had 18 listings from canceled and expireds. They were one of my top lead sources for closes my first year. So canceled and expireds are key, I think, to getting immediate business. Same with FSBOs. I put FSBOs in there. I didn't concentrate as much on FSBOs. I really missed that opportunity. The other opportunity that I blew 100% was your sphere. I mean, who better to give you business than your sphere? I did not work my sphere my first year. I kind of just happened to get one of my first listings from my sphere, but it was really kind of almost an accident. I missed 6 closings my first year because I did not work my sphere. So working your sphere is very, very key, I believe, to your success. And it's an area of opportunity that I did not do. And that came back to my mindset, which was a crappy one, that, you know, that, oh, everybody's older, nobody's going to sell. They don't have any needs. Every excuse in the book of why not to call my sphere. I think I did my original sphere calls, and then that was pretty much it. And I probably didn't even do all of them because I missed, like I said, I missed that opportunity on 6. It was a cousin of mine that sold 6 of his rental houses the very first year that I was in business. And when he found out that I was in business, he said, Gail, why didn't you call me? You know, I would have given those listings to you. So anyway, so that's just a whole nother bad experience for me. And hopefully you don't make the same mistakes. But when I say hunters, not gatherers, that's what I mean as far as those opportunities, because if you're going to do open houses or you're going to do canceled and expireds, you're going to be hunting. Gathering to me is more something that comes later down the line when you start to get a more established clientele base. And sometimes you just gather things because, you know, you did a good job with, you know, a particular buyer and they recommend you to somebody else. But that also, you have to stay up on that too, because if you're not hunters in that arena and remind them basically what a good job by touching base with your past clients, you know, periodically, then you're going to kind of slip from their mind too. Somebody told me one time, if you haven't, you know, been really good about keeping up on your past clients and you go through, let's say, your database and you're like, oh man, I haven't called them for like 6 months and, oh man, what am I going to say? And, you know, the bottom line is they don't remember that you didn't call them for 6 months. Okay, so just pick up the phone and call them and just say, hey, this is Jana checking in on you. I thought about you because I just, I don't know, drove past your house or saw something that reminded me of you or whatever. Just pick up and call. Anybody have any questions?
I got a couple for you, Gail.
What's that?
I got a couple for you. One is you got a lot of business off of expired, and you told me before how you got that expired because you approached it a different way. Would you go ahead and share that?
Oh yeah, I approached it in a really different way because I didn't want to call the new ones because I figured I was new and nobody was going to hire me. And I figured that, everybody else was calling the new ones. So I had the advantage though of sitting behind probably one of Ben's. He's no longer with Ben, but at the time he was probably Ben's, and probably to this day was Ben's number one converter of canceled and expireds. He was a guy that was in Bellingham. He basically, he was an agent, but he also kind of served an inside agent role. So he called all over the state or all over the area. And so he used to get on the phone so let me just back up a little bit. So Ben is in Bellingham and I live in Olympia. And when I actually started, I hung my license at Ben's office. So on a good day, that's a 2.5 hour drive. If you drive during the rush hour traffic, it's 3.5, 4 hours. So I used to get up and leave my house at 4 o'clock in the morning. So I get up at 3 and leave at 4. This is when I first started, and I go up there. Well, I went up there and stayed up there for a couple of weeks, and then I actually would commute back and forth about 3 days a week in the beginning. And so I would get up at 3 and leave at 4, and I would get up there at 6:30. And because if I left any later, it would take me 3.5, 4 hours. So this guy Brent, who was their number one cancel expired guy, he would come in every morning at 7 o'clock. And he would start calling cancel and expireds at 7 o'clock. I'm like, don't people get pissed? He's like, not really. Sometimes they do, but I don't care. I'll just dial the next one. But anyway, his conversion rate on cancel and expireds was amazing. So I actually got to watch him in action, and our cancel and expired, our long version cancel and expired script, it is his script. He wrote that script. So anyway, I had a lot of experience at that. And in the beginning, I was like, I don't know. I don't know if this is going to work or whatever. So I started thinking, I started in 2016, partway through, but 2017 was my first full year. And so I started thinking, hey, you know what? What if I go back and look at 2008, 2009 canceled and expireds? Because that was when the market crashed, right? So I called up a guy up in Bellingham at the time, Leo, who was in charge of our Mojo stuff, because he would put stuff into files for us. And I said, hey, Leo, can you go back and find canceled and expires from 2008, 2009? And he goes, yeah, why do you want those? And I said, I don't know. I'm going to call them and I'm going to see if anybody still owns the homes, see if they still want to sell. And he said, okay. He calls me up and he said, there's over 6,000 of them. And I said, well, put them in groups of 500 for me, would you? So he started putting them in groups of 500 and would toss those over to me into Mojo, into dialers, into the session things. And I started dialing through all of those. I actually dialed all of them. Anyway, that's how I jump-started my canceled and expired business. So there was a lot, they took a lot of time. But the bottom line is, I was shocked at the amount of people that actually still own the homes, and they had rented them out or whatever. So there was a good number of those cancel expires that first year that came out of those really old ones. So I always tell my new agents, hey, if you're worried about calling cancel expires that just came off the market because you're thinking that, nobody's going to talk to you because you're brand new and 50 other agents are calling them, go back and just call ones that are 3, 4, 5, 6 months old. So that's a really good strategy for you guys if you're really into canceled and expireds. They're really good sources of business. And the bottom line is, if you come in and actually sell that house for them and they weren't successful this first time, you become their best friend and their biggest advocate. I get lots of business still off those original cancel and expireds that I did that first year. I have one client that was one of those that I have gotten 6 pieces of business, and they didn't even live here. And Brandon in San Antonio has helped them sell and buy a house. And they are currently also referred out to another place agent in another part of the country. So there's lots of extra business when you don't even think about it, how that kind of snowballs. Anything
Wow.
else, Chris?
Tell me about after your first month of open houses and then your second month, how many pendings did you have after your second month? Because everybody talks about the number of open houses that you did your first and second month.
Well, it's not my first and second month. It's Ben's crazy story about December. So open houses. So I started my very first month. I did exactly what they told me to do. 2 every single week. I ended up with, I think, a couple nurture, whatever. I didn't get anything that first month. And so and this was a mindset thing too. So along with that, I was also doing 150 dials because that's what they told me to do. I wasn't doing 149. I wasn't doing 151. To be honest, I hated being on the dialer. So after my first month, I did get somebody under contract, probably because of sheer luck. I don't know. I did actually get a listing that wasn't on the market yet, through my circle prospecting, whatever. But I also realized that if I was going to do quote unquote the minimum, which our minimum is 2 open houses a week and 150 dials a day if you're using Mojo now. If you're on Brivity and it's 50, but whatever, that you were going to get minimum results. And when I started, I had decided that I wasn't going to be a minimum result person. That wasn't my reason to start. So I just decided to double and quadruple my activities so that hopefully by doing that, my production would come up. So I started doing, so in September, Wes, to answer your question, I started to do 16 to 20 open houses a month instead of 8 or 10, depending on how the weekends fall. Because I was pretty much doing them on the weekends, sometimes on a Friday or whatever, but pretty much on the weekends, I was doing the open houses because I was getting better traffic. So I started doing 16 to 20 a month. And then in December, that's what you're talking about. In December, I looked at the calendar, and Christmas, if you look at a calendar for 2016, Christmas, I believe, fell on Sunday. I know it was on the weekend. Christmas and New Year's fell on or New Year's Day fell on Sunday, which means Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve was on Saturday. And I was looking at the calendar for the month and I thought, oh shit, I'm not going to be able to get my open houses in. So I just doubled up and did them on Friday. And then the week between Christmas and New Year's, I did 10 that week. So that month I did 26 open houses. And I went into January with 12 pendings. So that open house activity through that fall just catapulted my business. And it just pretty much never looked back. By that summer, I carried 18 listings the entire summer. Was my average. One would sell and another one come back on or whatever, but I had 18 consistent listings through that entire, basically at the end of spring to summer. And that was all through that, cancel and expired activity. Some of it was referral. The good thing about being part of this network, and it wasn't as big then as it is now, is we get lots of referrals. and I was just one little agent, happened to be in my own little market. I was the only one down here. So if there was any kind of referral from any of the Ben Kinney teams at that time, which was only about, no, that first summer I was there was only 5 teams, I believe. There was, yeah, about 5 teams. But if anybody had anything from my area, of course it, and they would refer me to other brokers that they knew, and Ben used to get a lot of phone calls too from just people like Remax agents, or just people that he was known in the industry. So some of those some of those listings were actually from referrals too. So
Now, tell me about what you found the secret of success was converting those open house leads. Was it just getting them to sign a buyer's agreement or getting an appointment, or tell us about that? Because we see people come into their open houses. How did you look at converting them?
Well, I'm not overly aggressive, believe it or not. I know that probably surprises you, but but when it comes to open houses, I actually was more into, let me see if I can build a relationship. So I'm not one of those, and I've sat through a lot of different open house trainings, and I'm not saying that those people that are more aggressive than I am are doing it right, wrong, or indifferent. It's just not my style. I don't like going to a store and having an overly aggressive salesperson, try to get me to buy something or whatever. I don't like that. So I'm not like that either, but just asking a lot of questions, Wes, and getting to know the people as they come in. I'm actually pretty good at that. Pretty good at, oh, hi, how are you doing? I see you have kids. Oh, I love kids, and picking the kids up or whatever, or, just engaging them in a conversation and trying to get to the bottom of, motivation. Are they working with an agent? One of the questions that I always ask them, because everybody says they're working with an agent. They all say it. You're working with an agent. That's how you get rid of the salesperson. Yeah, I'm working with an agent. So when they say that, I learned really, really quick. I just answer them back. Oh, really, Wes? What's their name? I know most of the good agents in this market. And if they can't tell you their name, and usually you'll see the look on their face, they're not working with an agent. They like stumble. If they don't know the name, they're not working with an agent. So, if they're right, Johnny on the spot, yeah, it's Wes, whatever, at Keller Williams and whatever. Oh, cool. Then, and I always want to know that anyway, so I can follow up with that agent, to make sure that they're, if they want to, put an offering on the house or whatever. I was doing a lot of open houses by that summer on my own listings. So obviously I wanted to follow up. Now, in the very beginning, I was having to find open houses from other agents to host. And that was not easy, I'll tell you. Because our market back then was very similar in statistics to our current market. So there wasn't a ton of inventory. Houses were on the market a long time. I had one house that took about 6 months to sell. That was my own listings, but days on market when I started were 90 plus. So it was definitely a buyer's market when I started.
Okay. Questions from the group?
Where's Stephen Gilbert? How come his camera's not on?
It's on, Miss Gail. Good morning.
Oh, there you go. I called you out. Are you on a different one? You have a different one up too. That's just your picture over here.
I'm over in Clarksville, but I don't know why their camera's not on either, Zach Davis. But I'm here.
Are you in the office?
Home office, yes, ma'am.
Oh, okay. Anybody else have
Gail,
anything?
I got one, I guess. So it sounds like you had come in almost like out of retirement. So I'm kind of curious about the whole, the difference between I have to make this much, I have to do this, and then to the point of that have to mark to the I would like to do this. Let's say I have to make 10 sales, I would love to make 24. How have you seen yourself or other people around you kind of figure out the behavior motivation kind of between those two.
You mean the difference between the kind of what we do now when we set up our budgets, like this is the number I need to kind of survive and meet my goals, and this is that stretch number?
Yeah.
Yeah. You want the honest truth?
Yes.
Okay. Because I'm going to give it to you. I believe that when we set goals and we say something along that lines, because I have 2 agents that are doing it, and we just had this conversation at our mid-year deal. So they set goals for whatever it was. Let's say it was 24. And they're not quite tracking for the 24 because this has been a pretty tough year. And their stretch goal is 30. And they said, I don't understand how to get to the 30. And I said, well, to start with, it's just my opinion, but you set your first goal too low and you're not holding yourself to accountability or expectations to even meet that goal. So how do you think you're going to meet the 30? Because I believe that when we set a goal, that it's our responsibility to deliver on that goal. And whether that's to ourselves, Jana, to our team, or to our family. And I think a lot of times what we do is we just we almost like give up. I mean, you have to, Jana, you've been in this business long enough now too. I mean, you know that this is a tough business. And we also know that the activities produce the results. And if we don't do enough of the activities, and here's the deal. If we say, if you know, for example, and we've got all kinds of data now that we didn't used to have, but let's just say Jana knows that it's going to take her, 200 dials to get an appointment. And she's going to need 2 appointments to basically get 1 closing, whatever your numbers are. There's going to be days that Jana's not going to get her 1 appointment on those 200 dials. So I think sometimes what we do is we do the 200 dials and then we don't get what the result is supposed to be, which is the 1 appointment. And so we just, oh, well, instead of keeping our butt in the chair and doing 450 or 600 dials to get the appointment, the bottom line is we lose track of the goal because we get caught up in the activity and thinking it doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it goes back to mindset. Jana, that's exactly why I started double, triple, and quadrupling the dials and stuff. The other reason I did it, to be honest, was we had this stupid board up in Bellingham that had, we kept track of stuff on it. And so when I would go up there, and they kept track of things like open houses and number of dials and then pendings and closings and all this kind of stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I would go up there and I wanted to be on that stupid board and I wanted to be at the top of something. You know what I mean? And I knew as a new agent starting out, I probably wasn't going to be at the top of that pending or that closed, category, at least right away. But I knew one thing I could control was the other things. Like I could do more dials than somebody else. Somebody else did, at that time we were doing 750 dials a week. If somebody was doing 750 dials a week, why couldn't I do 1,500 or 2,250 dials a week? So I just decided, now these were Mojo dials, okay? So those 150 dials in Mojo takes you an hour. People are like, oh my God, I did, 150 dials today. It took you an hour. Come on. You could do 450 dials in 3 hours. That's not even a half a day's work. So I guess, so that's the mindset I went in. Is I wanted to get to the top of some board. And the way I could get to the top of the board was to just quadruple and just really go after the activities. But the funny thing was, it worked. what Ben told me to do worked. And I was like, wow, this stuff works. And it's funny because I get agents, and I get them all. I mean, I have agents that, they're like struggling or whatever. And I'm like, well, did you do what, this doesn't work. What do you mean it doesn't work? Have you been in here every day? Have you done what well, yeah, I've done my $150 or my 50. They're doing 50 in brevity. I've done my $50 in brevity. Well, was there anything there's a sign on the door that says you can't do more than 50? Like, you didn't get your appointment. So like, why don't you do 100? I mean, why don't you do the activity till you get the result? And we get caught in this activity mode of, oh, I did my 50 dials or I did my whatever dials. And we forget that the goal is the appointment. So that's what I talk about, is do whatever it takes. And if you come in with that do whatever it takes mindset, I promise you, you're going to be successful. You can't not be.
Yeah. Thank you. It's good.
Other questions? Who else?
I can't see you guys. I forgot my glasses today. I just thought I'd tell you that. Seriously, I'm like blind.
I don't have a question, but I thought your thinking and going back to 2008, 2009 to check out those expireds. I think that was so smart.
I bet you there's still people nowadays that still own those houses too.
Yeah.
Because I mean, it's been 7 years ago that I did that, but I mean, think about that. 7 years ago, it was 8 years since 2008, 2009, 7-8 years ago. So I guess my point is just go back and do the old ones if you're worried about doing the new ones against the 50 other agents that are calling them.
Right.
They won't be as pissed either. You know how they get mad.
Very true.
I have a specific objection question. I don't know if you're seeing more of a trend in this. I guess this came up with the competitive market we've been seeing these last couple of years. How do you handle the objection when you're going up against another agent who has offered to reduce their commission? How do you approach that?
Other than saying if they offer to reduce their commission, how hard are they going to fight for you when it comes to the value in your home? I mean, that's usually I've come up against that. And I just tell them I'm not going to reduce my commission because I have a ton of value to bring you. I can bring the statistics that shows the extra value that I bring, because we know that we sell at a higher percentage than most of the other agents in the market. So you can bring those statistics to them, and also remind them is the price that you get. One of the lines that I use a lot is the price you get for your house more important than the bottom line number that you're going to put in your bank account. Okay, because there's multiple points of negotiation throughout the process. You know this. And I'm a huge believer in making sure that both my buyers and my sellers realize the value that we can bring to them when it comes to things like inspections and those other things that are beyond price. So if you're in a situation, are you guys still in situations where you're getting waived inspections? Or are you back to inspections again?
I think we're about back to that now.
Inspections again, right? Okay, when you go and meet with a homeowner and you're trying to sell a house that was built in, let's say 1970, 1980, 1990, an older home or whatever, and you have that conversation with them about when they get ready to put it on the market. Do you have the conversation with them about inspection and what that's going to look like? Do you have a monetary conversation with them about inspection? Because a house at the house in that age group is typically could cost them $5,000 to $10,000 to get the thing to the closing table.
Okay.
Because of repairs, things you don't, whatever. So older homes just typically have other things. And you need to remind them that you're going to upfront, even before you accept an offer. Because when I accept an offer from somebody, one of the first questions I ask them is I'm talking to the buyer's agent, is what kind of conversation did you have with them about inspection? And I flat tell the agent up front, because I want you to understand that this house was priced to condition. And if your buyer could see it, we're not fixing it. I tell my buyers that too, when I'm out with buyers, because as we all know, if you look at the statistics, and the statistics in our market is about 30% of homes that go under contract. If you look at overall, about 30% of homes don't make it to the closing table.
Wow.
Okay. So look at your statistics, but that's ours. And of those 30%, about 70% fall out during inspection. I let my listing agents know that, or my people that I'm going to list with. I rarely lose a deal on inspection. And the reason is because I prep both my seller, and I have really in-depth conversations with the buyer's agent that we accept the offer from about inspection, because I want that expectation to be set up front, because that is what costs your seller money beyond the price. Okay, are those concessions after the fact? The other thing is, statistically, look it up in your market. Statistically, this has not been as big of a deal, but Wes, you probably know these numbers. Statistically, in a normal market, if a house goes under contract and it falls out due to the inspection, it goes back on the market, what's the percentage that it typically sells for less? You need to know, you need to know those numbers for your market, because you need to educate your sellers about that, and just say, hey, this is our team, however you want to put it. This is our team's numbers as far as the amount of listings that we've had fall out due to inspection. This is a big deal on convincing people, especially if you're up against somebody else that's going to cut their commission. We have Redfin in our market. Do you guys have Redfin in your market?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, they're, the 1% guys. Go pull their numbers. I don't know what they are in your market, but they're not good here.
They're not good here either.
So I pull their numbers, and if you've got, because that's usually who we're up against. Well, I'm going to have Redfin. They'll do it for 1%, 1% on the sell side. They're up to 1.5 now, by the way. But anyway, and then still offer whatever on the buy side. Of course, they're going to offer. But anyway, so that's the one that we're up against the most. And statistically, they do not perform like we do. And if you put that number against it, typically we're going to end up getting more for the house for them. And that enough more that it almost pays our entire commission.
Wow.
So anything else? Wow, you guys went late today.
I have a question. Just regarding, you were talking about the conversations that you have with your seller about the condition of the home prior to listing it. I've had issues with this, just the homeowner not being realistic about the condition
Right.
of the home. And somehow or another, it turns out to be my fault.
Yeah.
I would just like to know, do you have anything in writing that you could share with us or send to us about what that conversation looks like?
I don't, but I could write something up for you.
Well, I mean, if you would have time and be willing to do it, I would
Yeah.
really be curious to know.
I have a good bulleted point. And here's the other thing is, we just turned down 2 listings with an unrealistic, 2 different sellers.
Yeah. right.
It broke my heart for my agents because they really wanted the listings. And I
Mhm.
said, look, you know, and we just took a listing and sold it. And this was an interesting one. It came off listen to this, it came off the market, $869,000.
Wow.
Okay. Came off the market, 800, it was a canceled and expired listing. One of my newer agents, she's all excited. She gets the appointment. The people actually, he's in Jordan. She lives in Oklahoma or something. I don't know. They're not here. We went out and looked at the house. Well, we ran the stats on it first. Statistically, it was about 749. So before I went out and looked at it, we got on a conference call with him and the wife. And I just told him, I said, look, Eric, I am not in the job of taking listings. Okay, that's not our job. My job is to sell your home and get the most amount of money that I can for it. And I don't know why or what happened before, but we will not take this listing at what you want for the house and what it came off for anywhere near. I said, statistically, it's about 749. I said, I have not seen the house yet. I said, so I can't tell you what the house is going to be worth until I go out and look at it. He said, okay. So he was willing to kind of listen there, right? We go out and look at the house. It was a 649 house. We call him back and he said, 649? I said, well, and I told him all the reasons. And he listed with us, believe it or not. 869 to 649. We got it sold. It took us some work though, because
Yeah.
it was barely worth 649. And I told him, I said, that's at the very top end. I also warned him up front. I said, I'm going to tell you right now up front, if we have to start lowering the price, we're going to lower it to 599. Are you willing to take the deal? Are you willing to hire us knowing that up front? And he said, yeah, I am. So we took it, we got it sold at 649, barely. We were just getting ready to lower it, as a matter of fact, and we got just lucked out and got a buyer for it, and we're able to close the deal. But these two other ones were similar things. It's unrealistic expectations. And I told my agents, I said, look, these listings, they're our biggest expense.
Mhm.
I can't be spending money on photography and all this other stuff if we can't sell the listing. I said, and the other thing is, it makes you look bad.
Yeah.
Because now you have a listing that you haven't sold. And when people looking up your statistics, they're like, wait a minute, she's taking these listings, she can't get them sold. So sometimes you just have to make that hard choice. And I know it's really tough, especially when you're first starting out. And luckily, my little agent that has gotten these, she's new, actually. She's the one that got the 649 one, and she got these other two. And this lady that she's working with is just totally out there. She's had the house listed 5 times
Mm.
with 5 different agents. You know, that's your first clue. So,
Right.
but sometimes agents will take the listing just because they want the listing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So those are tough conversations, but you know, it's conversations that are necessary to have.
Well, on an older house, particularly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. That would be great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Gail, thank you so much for your time today. Anything you
Yeah.
want to leave us with?
Just keep doing the activities. They'll produce the results. Just remember POP, pipeline opportunities and pendings.
Perfect. Thank you so much again, Gail.
Guys,
Bye.
Thank you.
love you guys all.
Miss Gail, thank you.